Hello everyone, this is Sijas from Coding with Sijas and welcome back to another brand new video. This is the 14th video in the UI5 series. If you're watching this series for the first time, do click the link above to access the entire playlist. That way, you can familiarize with the code which we are working on. Also, do consider subscribing this channel for more content like this. In the last video, we learned how to integrate a nodejs service with a UI5 application. We also seen how it plugged in directly with our existing UI5 tables and also how the filters and sorting get applied. The next logical step to do is to handle the CRUD operations. If you are not familiar with CRUD stands for create, read, update and delete. So to do a CRUD operation, we will need to create more views. So now you have only one view in our application, which is called landing view. We need to create multiple views to handle create screen, a display screen, a list screen, and also to handle the update. So before going to that, let's check our existing code to understand what we have done in terms of navigation. Once all screens are set up, we now need to navigate to each screen depending on our needs. We have seen something called app.to in one of the previous video. So let's simply jump into the passcode and see what we have to do. So I'm running our application using our old serve, which is not UI5 serve, which is called serve, because we need to access the other folder from archive. So once we do that, we can always come to our web app folder and go to an example of we need to go to archive folder and go to the example of view model. So here we have seen an example of navigation. When you click on it, navigates to a different screen. So let us go to that code. So in the view model, the navigation was done using something called, we have the go to screen. Let me go to the controller, the first controller. And if I go to screen, you see here we were using app.to method, but there is a problem with it. So in the example what you have seen, there is a catch. That is, when you refresh the page, it takes you back to the first page, which was the screen where you had that navigate button. But when you're dealing with business application, you may need to have a context of where you have navigated. There should be some way to store this so that when user refreshes, he comes back to the exact position where he stopped. And this is done through many mechanisms, but one important mechanism is called as routing. A routing is a feature which you would have seen in some other application using AngularJS or maybe React.js and etc. Similarly, we will be having some kind of information where user have navigated in the URL format. But since this is a single page application, you will not be able to modify the first file, which is index.html, which is getting loaded. So index.html might not be the right name for it, because when you are working in a launchpad scenario, you wouldn't have an index.html. Instead, there will be something called Fiori launchpad.html. So here, let's see how a routing is implemented in the existing application. So as I've mentioned, when you click on navigate, we are navigating to the second screen. And when you refresh here, you're taken back to the first screen. And you have seen this is achieved using something called app.to, where this .id.app is an instance of the application, and .to will navigate to the second screen whose ID is intro. So we have multiple pages here. So first page is called intro, and next other page is called beautiful application. So there is two pages here and we are navigating. So let's close this and let's get back to our application in the web app folder. I'm shutting down the server because we are no more using the serve module. We will be using the UI5 serve, which is the UI5 module. Now let's go to manifest.json and add some additional changes here. So as you have seen, we have the root view as landing page, but we want landing page be one among the root. So we will create something new, which is called app view. So I'll just create a new file and let me call it app.view.xml. This is an empty app, so I'll just copy the content of, I'll just completely copy the content of a landing page, paste it, and we have it here. And I don't need a page in it. I want it to be an empty app with this information. And first thing I'll do is I'll change the landing page into app. Now let me open my terminal and I'll do a UI5 serve. Okay, the server started. I'm shutting it. I'll refresh this page. Now we are in index.html. I'll go to index.html and let's see what we see here. So we get an empty page because we don't have any content in the page with all the shell bar information which we have set in the background image and the logo which we have set. Perfect. Next thing we need to do is to provide an ID which is called app. So this is matching this condition. So now our root view is app whose type is XML, also ID as app. Now under the SAP UI5, right adjacent to models, I'll create a new setting called routing. Sorry. Routing. So under routing, I'll provide something called config, which is another JSON object. Here we need something called router class, which is sap.m.routing.router. So this is a router class. And next thing which we need to provide is the view path. So view path is the path from where the view is taken. So it is the same path as our app.view. So I'm choosing it. I'll come back. I'll give the view path. Now the next thing is what should be the control ID. So the control ID to which we have to put these additional views which comes in. So the control ID is app, as we have seen over here. This is the app. The next property which we need to give is control aggregation. So control aggregation. So this stands for the aggregation to which the view will be put. So as you know that app have the aggregation called pages. So we will be putting our content in the pages aggregation. So router class, view path, control ID, and control aggregation. And next thing is the view type. So we give view type as XML. So with this thing, we are done with the configuration. So what is the next thing? Next thing we need to provide is the routes. So we need to provide the route to which we will be navigating. So routes is an array which will be containing objects of route. The first thing is pattern. So pattern is empty because initially I need a landing page to come. And now name of the route. So name of the route, let me give it as initial. So initial is a route name. Now which view need to be loaded? So for that, what we provide is called as target. So in target, we just need to specify the target name. So I'm loading landing page. So I'll just create a target called landing page. This is just a name. It's not there yet. So that is copied. Now similar to routes, we need targets. So targets is an object whose landing page is a key. And here we will be providing few things. What is the first thing? The view name. So the view name is nothing but landing page. Now with this changes, let me just go back and refresh my app. And I see nothing. That is because we haven't initialized something called a router. So if we go here You see that everything is loaded since we have mentioned. So let me refresh again. And if I search for view, you see here view type is loaded because we have mentioned view type. And similarly, it will be loading the app.view. App.view is loaded. Right? Now, first thing what we have to do is we just need to go to component.js. Okay. Now we have init here. We just need to do this dot get router dot initialize. Call these method and let me go to the landing page. I'll remove the unnecessary content from here, so we no more need these things like a page and shell and etc. We just need a plain view. Save it. Let me come back to the view. I'll close this one and I'll just simply refresh it. Now you see here it looks similar where you have the landing page loaded over here where it shows the list of employees, and this is well and good. Now we have loaded the landing page using routing. So let's go back and create a create page. So for that, I'll just create a new file. Let me call it create.view.xml. And we have seen here we are still reusing the same controller as landing page. So I'll just create a dummy controller, which is called a base controller. So base controller.js, and our landing page controller have some there are a lot of methods which we have here. For example, every time we do a get model, we are using to get a model, we use this .getView.get model. So directly I will be defining a method called get model. So let me type sap.ui.define. So here I'll be using the default controller, which is sap/ui/core/mvc.controller, which is exactly same what we have in our landing page. So we have the MVC controller here, and the same thing which we do here is nothing but we specify a controller instance that's called as controller, and here we have to return the controller. So just return controller dot extent, and the new controller name is in.sijas. So I'll copy the content from here from the landing page. So we have here landing page 1. I'll come back to base controller. I'll simply use landing page. Instead of landing page, I'll use base controller, and the additional methods which will be returned. So this is what we have done here also. We are returning an instance of a controller and all those things. So what are some additional methods I want to be in this? First thing I'll do is get model. So get model will be a function which will be called with s model name, and anytime get model is called, what we do is we will be using this dot get owner component dot get model, and we'll pass with s name, right? So I have this. So anytime when get model is called, we will be doing this, and anytime the set model is called, we'll do the exact same, where instead of getting we will set it. So a set model is called with a model name, and so we'll be having an O model and a model name. So all you need to do is exact same, which is we just need to do a this dot get owner component. Instead of get model, we'll do a set model with a model name and s model name. What is the next method? I'll create something called get resource bundle, which we do a lot. So whenever we have to get an instance of i18n, this is what we do usually. So I'm not doing that anymore. I'll be directly getting the i18n model and the bundle. So let's get on a document. Dot here we are not returning anything. We just set it, right? And we have to get the model of i18n and get the bundle. Yeah. So this will do the job of get resource bundle. Now, all we need to do is let's go to landing page, and instead of loading MVC controller, let's extend base controller. I'll just use base controller dot controller, right? And now this is your controller and all these things are fine. Now let me remove this first because I don't need the entire get view. With this, let me refresh the page. Right, now we have this getting loaded. Let me put a debug point somewhere so I could show some items from the debug screen. So I'm going to sources. Yeah, perfect. So I'll remove the debug point. I'll remove basically all the debug points from here, and I'll add a new debug point in the landing page. We have the landing page controller here, and I'll put a debug point here, and let's maybe not there. We have a format name, so I'll refresh that, and we should be hitting the breakpoint. And we can write everything what we want over there. Yep. Let me go to console. We'll clear it. So whenever we want model, we can directly type this dot get model, which will return the model instance, and this dot get resource bundle will return the bundle. Okay, there is an error here. Get bundle is not a function. Okay, this dot get owner component dot get model of i18n, we get it, and get bundle. Okay, get bundle is not a function, so it should be, we have already used it over here. Okay, it's called get resource bundle itself. So let me go back to my code and just rename it. So go to base controller, and instead of get bundle, it is get resource bundle. Perfect. Now I'll come back to landing page, and I can remove this altogether. I don't need this at all anymore. I can directly load everything by using get resource bundle. So anywhere else, if I'm using the model, I'll just check the code. Okay, get view by id. I think this is no more relevant. Can directly use this dot by id as we have seen in many places. So let's see that. So I have a table instance over here, so I just need to know the code for getting the table instance, paste it, and I'll get this. So even if I don't use get view, I will be getting that, right? I'll remove get view from there. It will still give me the control. So I don't need it. So I'll remove the get view from this, and anywhere else some sort of cleanup is required. So all these things are done. Perfect. Now we have a base controller. So we can use this base controller as the controller for app. It's no more using the landing page. Perfect. So now let me close the instance here, and let's refresh the page, and this should load the new app with the changes. Perfect. Now what we need is we need to have a create screen. We have it here. All you need to do is copy the content of this, come back here, we have it. We don't need anything here. We will be putting it more, and we will need a create controller. Go here, plus create dot controller .js. We just need to copy the landing page, and go to create controller and paste it, and nothing from that here. We just clear everything inside it. Also, the name of the controller is just create, and none of it. Again, only the controller. We will add if anything is required for us. Now this is the second screen, and in create screen, all I will be showing is a text with text saying that you are in second screen. That will do the job. Now how to navigate? That is, go back to, I'll close everything over here. Close all. I'll go to our manifest JSON, and we add a new root. So what will be new root called? So we can't use the same pattern. So the pattern I'm going to use is create. This will be loading the create page, and we will be having a create. So I'll just use same case here. I'll use this as landing underscore page to make it more clear. So landing page. Now we have a target called create. So I have to create a new target called create, which will be having a view name as create. Now we have done. Now we have targeting a new item here. Now what is the next change we need? We need to show the create button somewhere, right? So what we do is we will go to our fragment, and in the employee table at the toolbar level we were showing this. So we will show a new button whose icon is going to be SAP-icon add, and we will be providing a text which is from the i18, and we will provide create. Okay, with this I'll go and refresh. We have a create here. Since you see that this id in the i18 model doesn't exist, it shows the id directly. So I'll go to i18, I'll go to my i18 properties. I'll add a new create, which is create employee. This is our new text. So with this, we will be having a create employee button at the toolbar. Loading. Create employee. So what should happen when you click on a create employee? It should navigate to the create screen. So how do we do that? For that, we'll attach a press event. And we will call it as create employee event. I'll go to landing page controller. I'll add a new method for create employee. And we need to get the instance of router. So this dot get router, but there is a catch. This method doesn't exist anymore, or we haven't created it yet. So we will go to our here and add a method called get router, which will be getting the router instance from our component.js. So how do we do it? So if I just go to any event handlers, so I do have an event handler for landing page controller for the format name. I'll put one in open settings, and I click on it. It hit a debug point here. Now, as I have shown here, if I go to console and if I type this dot get router, it throws error because that method doesn't exist. So to whom we can ask to get the router instance? The owner component. If you're saying to the owner component to get the router, that works. So we will add exact same thing in the base controller, which is return this dot get router. So once you write this dot get router, all you need to do is router dot nav to the name of the root. So what is the name of our root? So which we have seen in the manifest JSON. You'll see we have a root for create, and the root name is create in small letters. Copy, go back to landing page, paste it, semicolon, save it. Going back to my application, I'll close this, refresh it. Perfect. So when I click create, it should take me to the second screen, where you are in second screen, and you can notice that there is a change in the root. So yeah, here you can see it. So what happens when I refresh here? When I refresh here, since the root is already present in my URL, instead of taking you to the first page, it takes you to the second screen directly. The context is saved. So like this, maybe you can try creating multiple screens for display and etc. Right? And Next thing what we need to do is we will create and navigate to a screen for display with some information need to be passed. So here if you see in the create, we don't want any information to be passed because we are saying create only. Now what if I need to pass some info about the employee here? So what I'll do is I'll just make it a navigatable. So if I go to my employee table, if I go to my column list item, here I can give type as navigation, right? So let me refresh. So you see I get this icon and it is clickable now. So how do I know when to navigate? Only thing you need to do is press and navigate, right? So I'll click on navigate, I'll go to my landing page, I'll add a new method for navigate. Now since I need some information about the column list item I have clicked, I'll use something called oEvent. Now from this, if I type var source oEvent dot get source will give me the information about the row I have clicked. Now I need to get the context. So for that, all I need to do is get context or context dot get context. So osource dot get binding context. So this will give me the context. That means with respect to model, which line I have clicked. That information will be available in get context. Now let me go and create a new view. So I'll create a copy of create controller. I have a copy here. I'll rename it. I'll call it as display dot view dot xml, and that's pointing to create. So I'll create something called display, and the same thing I'll do for create as well. I'll create a copy of I don't need two, I just need one copy. I'll rename it with display dot controller dot js. Perfect. So I'll name this as display. Now I'll create my display view also. I'll mention this display, right? Now I'll go back to my component.js. I'll add a new pattern or root, and pattern is display, and it will be navigating to display, and the target is display, and I'll create a new target called display, which is having the structure same as this. View name is display, right? So this is perfect. Everything is saved, all good. Closing it. Okay, I'll go back to my landing page, and here I'll say this dot get router dot nav to display. So here now we're directly navigating to we are in the landing page. So when user click on this, we will be navigating to a display page. So you see that you are in second screen is shown over there. That is because even in your display you are showing that. So you are in maybe I'll say display screen, and in the create view I'll say you are in create screen to make that clear cut difference. Yeah, I'll save all the changes. All good. Now, how do I pass the information? That means, how do I know which item I have clicked over here? So for that, you need to first say in the manifest that there is going to be some value passed. So that should be something called employee ID. You'll be passing some employee ID, right? Now, let's go back to our landing page controller. And we have got the context here. Now we need an employee ID. So S employee ID is context dot get property. So we're getting a property from the context. And what property we are getting? Let's go to our fragment, go to employee table. We are getting the employee ID. So coming back to my landing page, I have got the employee ID here. So I have the employee ID. Now what I need to do is I need to say that the second parameter is the parameters which we are passing to the root. So we are passing employee ID, and if I go to manifest, I get the key which I am passing it as. So basically employee ID in my root is the employee ID which I am passing over here. So with this, we go and refresh. Yeah, we are loading. I click here. Okay, let's see. We have some errors. Let's see what is the error. Employee ID is not defined. Okay. It's called S employee ID. So let me use S employee ID. Save it. I'll close this. Yep. So we are loading the employees table, and I click on it. You see, I'm going to display, and the parameter is not passed. So let me go back to my manifest once just to verify. Yeah, display do have employee ID. So let me go here, go to inspect element, and I'll make sure that there is a cache reload done. Empty cache and hard reload. So just that sometimes your manifest JSON will be cached. So to avoid it, it is always better to run with empty cache and hard reload whenever you changes file like a JSON file, because the default caching policy get applied. Yep. Now let's just verify our network, and I'll check for manifest. Manifest is loaded. I'll click the manifest, and I'll check my UI5. I'll check the routing. I'll check the routes, and you have see the pattern with employee ID is there. When I click on this, you can see now with ID it is passed. I'll close this. You can see whenever I click it, you know the ID is being passed to the second screen. Okay. Now, how do I receive this ID in the second screen? For that, let me go to display controller, and let me override on init method. Okay, so in onInit method, okay, let me write a new internal method called display route matched. Okay. Display or object page. Let me call it as object page underscore object route matched. I'm just writing a function, and that's it. So now what we need to do is we need to know, we need to say to the router that whenever a route is matched, we need to call this one. So for that, we'll say this dot get router dot get route. So what is the route name? Display. And whenever display route is matched, attach pattern matched. That's a method. We will be passing this dot underscore this one dot bind of this. That's a dependency injection. Now if I put a debug point here, I should hit it as soon as the route is matched. So let me just select element, and whenever display 3, so here you notice I will not need to go to the first page and come back to the second screen, since I already know that display, I'm loading the third file, I'll be here. So you can see here we already got the instance because the route is matched. Perfect. Now what is the next thing? Okay, this will be having an O event, just to know. So now var O params equal to O event dot get parameters. What's the parameters? Let's see. So let me put a debug point. Okay, let me just put a debug point with the O event. So let me refresh. So we are already in the third, this one, we will be hitting the breakpoint. We already hit the breakpoint. Now we go here and see what are the available options. So the available option for us is O event dot get parameters. So if you write get parameters, it will pass everything. So we have something called arguments, which will be having all the available values. So how do you get arguments directly? You can either use get parameters dot arguments, or you can write get parameter in double quotes arguments. Right, so with this we will get it. Let me go back. Right, arguments. Now we have got the arguments. Now where this is S employee ID equal to O parameters dot, what is the parameter? Employee ID. Perfect. Now we can always show it in our alert window if necessary. Perfect. It shows the alert window. Now the next thing, very important thing, is to load the view with the data what we have seen there. So for that, I'll write a new method called bind view. What does bind view do? It is responsible for binding the view with respect to our employee ID. Right? So just call this dot bind view with employee ID. Okay. So now there is a small asynchronous thing. Let me talk. So if you look at here, when your page is loaded, this information is instantly available to you because of the routing. But that doesn't ensure your OData service is loaded. By that I mean your metadata need to be loaded before you do any OData operations. As you know that we are in the second screen, where when I come here, I want it to already load my data of which I've clicked here, right? So for that, we will write this dot get model dot metadata loaded. So let me just take you to UI5 SDK. And there is a promise to ensure that metadata is loaded. So v2 dot OData model, right? So there are few few promise methods which is available on handy. So what I'm using is something called metadata loaded. So it's coming at metadata loaded. So what is metadata loaded? It's basically a promise which will be telling you whether the metadata is loaded or not. Okay, so I'll be using exact same. I just want to know whether the metadata is loaded or not. And if metadata is loaded, then we will execute certain things. Right. So let me write a function which is a success callback. And inside this, I'll be loading the employee ID. So we have our OData model here. So let me just create an instance of OData model. O model equal to this dot get model. Okay. And O model dot metadata loaded. Now we need a context path. So what is this? So this is basically when user have clicked on a particular item, we need to. So let me load the Northwind service. Right. So in the Northwind service, we had employees which we are using. So employees is here. And yeah, let me format to JSON. Yeah, the employees are here. We are calling many employees. Now we want to select one single employee, which means I am selecting the third employee, right? So if I pass third employee, I need to get the information only of the third employee. That is exactly what we're doing here, where we are clicking on the third item and we are showing the second item and we are showing the second employee's information. So if you see here, there is this URL difference changed. So how do you get it? So that is using this dot O model already we have. So we can do O model dot create entry. We go here, you can see some create methods, create entry and create key. So we'll use something called create key. And what is the key? Nothing. We need to just pass the employee ID. Right. So employee ID is this S employee ID. Now once we get this is a relative path. So we need to make it absolute by appending a slash to it. Now since we got the context path, all we need to do is we need to just call this dot get view dot set binding context with respect to my S context path. Right. So we can do this, or I am not doing this. This is a worst way of doing it. Let me directly say this dot get view, and I'm saying to do a bind element. So I'm going to do an element binding with respect to this particular context path. Right. Now let me go back to my app and I'll do a element binding. So let me just inspect element and I'll click on the network and I'll just put some debug point in my here, correct? So if metadata is loaded, so once I am in the debug point, you see as soon as the view is loaded, that particular second screen is loaded, but it takes some time for you to okay, let my debug point in up here, right? I'm here right now. I go forward. I have got a oh yeah, so we forgot one important part to say, that to which entity we are going to create. So as you seen in the metadata, there are several options for us in terms of entities, right? So we have to also say that to which entity we are creating it. So that is very important. So we forgot to say that. So it is very important that the property which you're mentioning here is available in employees. So for that, you can always open $metadata. And for employee ID is available. So with this, let me refresh again. Perfect. Now we're hitting the breakpoint. Next, we have the employees too. Now I'm doing a bind element. And if you look at the network, you see, let me go to my OData call. It made a batch call. Looks like the batch call isn't implemented. Yeah, the call went. So implemented is some other error. No, not to worry about this. So we go to batch and we go to payload and we look at the preview. We got the data. Now all you need to do is to do a relative bindings. When the display, instead of showing this text, I can just show employee ID. So I'll just go to my manifest. So I'll just go to metadata. I'll copy employee ID. I'll duplicate few things here. And I'll say first name, the last name, and the city. So with this information, I'll be able to do a complete binding of OData service with parameterized and contextual binding, by which all the data which is relevant for that screen is loaded. See here, to Andrew, Fuller, Tahoma, all these are the information coming from the OData model. So let's recap for today. So today we have seen how to implement a routing concept in UI5 application, how to route to a screen without a parameter like a create screen, and how to route to a different screen like a display screen with parameter and a contextual information. We have seen what is the benefit of using route comparing to app.to navigation. So with this, we can conclude for today. And in the next video, we will try to implement CRUD operations. As I always say, if you have any questions, you can drop a comment at the bottom. If you like this video, drop a like. It will be really good motivation for me. And if you haven't watched the video at all from this channel, you can subscribe the channel for more content. Also follow the playlist, Start Learning UI5. Thank you everyone. See you in the next video. Bye-bye.